Hello, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here today to talk about the newest release from Tremendous Leadership in our series of life-changing classics. I am here today to announce life-changing classic number 36, The Amazing Life of Florence Nightingale, the Reluctant Celebrity. And today, we have a privilege that no one in our lifetime has experienced. With some help from modern science and 21st century technology, we have tapped into time travel. So without further ado, I would like you to join me in welcome the Lady of the Lamp, Ms. Florence Nightingale, live.
Hello?
Florence? Florence, are you there? Oh my,
Hello. So lovely to see you.
this
I'm
is
here in my heavenly office. What do you think?
I think it's absolutely I'm speechless, Florence. I can't believe that we are getting to hear your wisdom and to share with the people out there. So, Florence, while I have you, I have a couple questions I would like to ask. And that is the first, Miss Nightingale, you revolutionized nursing care during the Crimean War. Can you describe the conditions that you first encountered when you arrived in Scutari in Turkey and what immediate changes you made to save lives?
Conditions and changes. Well, conditions. Yes, I will start with the building. We arrived, 38 of us nurses, to a dilapidated 100-year-old building. It had been erected by some sultan or other as stables and lately leased by Britain as a medical facility. And the date was November 4th, 1854. If you were with me then, well, I wish you could have seen this. You would not have believed it. 3,000 injured, lying in this barracks they called a hospital then. Just miles and miles of fallen men. Oh, they were boys, actually, 16 to 22-year-olds. Heroes, 'twas clear. Ah, the memory. I'll switch gear, I tell you. It was built on a cesspool, that hellhole in the village called Scutari. And, well, the floor, how shall I describe it all? Watch your step. We used to call it BMS, for blood, mud, and stool. There were no beds. There was no furniture. No. Amputations conducted on the wards in front of the men. We arrived. We were scorned. We were told to turn round. We had no such intention. No, not to mention the journey we had we had taken on a ship for several weeks. No, we had no such intention. And my motto became proceed until apprehended. So I went shopping. I went to the market. I purchased supplies, a heavy kettle, and in which we washed soldiers' clothes. Oh, big surprise, we were useful. Yes, and that's not all. We cleaned that place with fastidious grace, with scrub brushes, and on the walls and the floors. We stomped off cockroaches and we whacked the rats, I tell you. That's right. And later, although physical therapy was unknown to me, and yet it seemed so natural in terms of healthful practices to walk about, those that could, to sit in the sun, deeply respirate. Later, I wrote volumes on the benefit of clean air and water to heal the body and the soul. Yes. And meanwhile, of course, with all the problems there, I wrote the Minister of War, Sidney Herbert, who had sent me at least once a day, sometimes twice or thrice, telling him of the rude awakenings, the horse we found dead in the cesspool beneath us, which was ushering in cholera, of course. And oh, I tell you what he did. He sent 3 heroes our way, 2 civil engineers and a sanitary expert. And those fellows got to work, cleaned things up, and provided us with running water. Oh, luxury, not a fantasy any longer. Let me tell you, when we arrived, the death rate from disease was over 40%, and it plummeted soon enough to 2%. And those were some of the first changes.
Oh my goodness, that just makes me think about the healthcare that we have today and how blessed we are. And for you to go in there and literally roll up your sleeves and be exposed to that is just inspiring. Now, you also have an incredible mind, not just an incredible heart. Your work in statistics and hospital reform were groundbreaking. How did you convince, and you've alluded to this, you can be quite tenacious and you're going back once, twice, thrice. I love that. How did you convince the government leaders and the military officials, mostly men in power, to take your recommendations seriously?
Well, first let me preface this by saying the Lord had positioned me. I was born into an aristocratic family. And so you see, some of those change makers were frequent guests in our home. I knew many of them. First, then, in terms of what I did, I would like to harken it back to a detective novel. I infiltrated their weaknesses and shone a light on them and made them defenseless. Well, I tell you, my dear, it was shameful to have to elucidate that the purpose of a hospital is to do the sick no harm. And oh, all the dirt we uncovered. They were caught with their trousers down, figuratively, of course. The jig was up because, you see, by the time I returned from the Crimea, Her Majesty, the whole nation, had been alerted by the news that had gotten back home of the system and the inequities. Oh, it was horrible. The Queen said, I would like to appoint you a position in the Ministry of War. But of course, there was that one problem. I was a woman, so could not do. But she made me an ad hoc advisor. And, well, before I tell you that, secondly, I will say I worked very closely with, I used to call my kitchen cabinet, several influential men, all of them men, as it turned out. Sir John Sutherland, a sanitary engineer. We worked together in Crimea. He was my right-hand secretary. Wonderful, wonderful worker. My brother-in-law, Sir Henry Varney, a member of Parliament, very hopeful, putting those policies forward. Sir Hugh Clow, again, family friend, editor, and what would you call him these days? Executive assistant. Gopher. He was my security guard also. And I had several influential people in these high places who would look at the work, and they all agreed we wanted change. You see, all the closets in your home need cleaning it once in a while. Well, the closets in government, they need scouring sometimes too. Frequent review. And we became a team with a dream. Now, in terms of statistics, the Queen paired me up with the royal statistician, Sir William Farr, very very infamous in a positive way, statistician. And we created the treaties. It had a long name, but it was to reset or reform the British military hospital system. Over 500 pages, and we had approximately 25 appendices of sheets of statistics. Funny story. I told William Farr, and he said, well, we're ready to give this off to the Parliament, and I will speak, and Harry Varney will speak, Sidney Herbert will speak. We'll all be in one mind for this. And I said, well, are you going to provide this, this tome to all the MPs? And he said, oh, of course. And I will point at certain times to the appendices for them to understand. And I said, my dear friend, I have known many of these members of Parliament since I was but a young woman round the dinner table. And I can tell you, as for politicians, they are no more statisticians than my dog Jack. The only way that we are going to have their understanding of the actual statistics is to color it out like a picture. And so I invented what you now call the infographic. Yes, a diagram, a rose diagram that anyone who's, I say, achieved 8 years could look and understand the meat of what was in this large book of over 500 pages.
My goodness. Miss Nightingale, you'll be happy to hear that today things are still very similar. There's an awful lot of cleaning that needs done. We rely on our friends, and it's all about connection. So I love that you're sharing the lessons that you went through, because they are totally still applicable in today's world. Now, obviously, I can see exactly why you became what they call a reluctant celebrity, admired across Britain and beyond. How did you feel about the public's fascination with you? And did fame ever get in the way of your mission?
Little pause here. Are you there?
I am here. Yes.
All right. Seems you froze up a little.
I did.
There.
It must have been that we must have hit a wormhole or something like that.
Ooh.
Actually, it's the winds outside. So if you can tolerate it, Florence, we'll just keep on going.
Yes.
I'm back and you're back. Yes. Did you hear the question, Florence?
No.
Okay. I'm sorry, Florence. You became a reluctant celebrity.
Yes.
How did you feel about the public's fascination with you? And did that fame ever get in the way of your mission?
No, my friend, fame. I wanted none of this celebrity business, I tell you. Especially at first, fresh out from the horrors of war. I arrived home sick, very sick, sick unto death. The doctors in Scutari told me that if I survived the ship ride home, they gave me 6 months, the most, told me, put my affairs in order. And if, by God's grace, I survived the 6 months, perhaps I'd have another to last a year. Well, I tell you, I showed them. The Lord allowed me to live until 90. But I was forced to deal with my immobility and taking away that, my independence and my privacy simultaneously. But now, my friend, you understand, as we age, everyone fears the loss of independence, of course. But I was only 37. There were days when I could barely move. I was racked with pain, the fevers that would come and go. days when I could barely breathe. And oh, then there was my mother's desire to use my sudden notoriety to preen in better circles. It was disgusting. I had a mission. I knew by then, it was clear. My mission was to help the helpless and give hope to the hopeless in very practical ways all over the globe, and I would not stop. I felt it was Satan's minions who were tying me up, and so I pressed on. Now, in terms of privacy, I'll tell you what. If I ventured out, it was always a struggle because of those newspaper men. Yes, do you know, they would work to sell papers by printing something salacious, if possible, or weird or unsavory, well, you fill in the blank. And if I was seen in my carriage going round about the days I did venture out, or I was, believe me, seldom, because rattling around on cobblestone streets was even more added to my discomfort. But all right, surely my face was grim often when they would see me. I was in pain. And so they said I was, oh, melancholy, despondent, and some even said I was a lunatic. Well, I ask you, have you known anyone who was suffering from chronic pain, who was not intermittently at least downtrodden, maybe even depressed? Well, I say, those two, pain and depression, they share an unholy bed. Yes. Here's news that added to the problem. Yeah, in the beginning of the 1853, the beginning of the Crimean conflict, was the year that in Britain and many other parts of Europe, the world was changing. The telegraph was emerging. And the result was a constant consumption of news. And photography was another new toy. And I would cringe. I don't think myself particularly as a vain person, but even so, who wants to be shot with a flash the moment you step out of your home? And especially when you're not feeling well, it's nearly blinding. Or you want to be pursued when you just go out for a bit, a few steps of breath air, or a ride in the park. It was intrusive. And the papers, they sent someone to peer around my flat several times a day. Oh, Mr. Sir Hugh Clow was my champion, I tell you. They were merciless, and they always found me. It was like being pursued by a loathful suitor. My detractors then were fed lies, but like I said, I had work to do. I did not allow it to interfere with my mission.
Well, Florence, I know that will really encourage people listening today, because the more I'm listening to you speak, there are so many similarities. And when you do have your mission, you will have those detractors. I am so thankful you were able to stay focused on your mission and deal with that disease and make it into your 90s. So today, if you could give advice, because our modern day audience is listening, if you could give advice to the nurses and the healthcare leaders of today, what wisdom would you share from your experience?
Yes, to the nurses and healthcare leaders, God bless you. Well, harkening back, the problems of my day, I will tell you what they were. They were too much work, not enough staff, and not enough funds to carry it through. Does that sound familiar?
Yes, it does.
Yes? Well, you may think that there's no end in sight. And what I used to tell my nurses is there will be no end in sight. Our duty is that we are at war with death and disease. Our duty is to, while we have breath, press on. You see, our healthcare system, it doesn't matter where, all of them are fallible. They are broken. And why is that? Well, because we are human, of course, and humans by nature have two internal faults. One, we're imperfect and therefore fallible. And two, we are in a constant state of flux. Ergo, we must learn to be flexible. And I would say, in terms of advice to leaders, be generous with praise and cautious with criticism. You know, no one comes into healthcare to get rich as politicians do. No, we arrive to make a difference. So treat us gently. And for those others who are looking for a way when they are not at work to make a difference, I say use your gifts. You know, many are talented writers. Some would be willing to speak up in public for change because you are able to do that now. I was not. Take action. That is it. Take action. Study statistics. Yes. Buttress your claims with facts borne out by the statistics. Oh, there are many ways to serve the public. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Florence. So your legacy has endured for well over 100 years.
Mhm.
So let's step forward in time. You know, our audience, your modern day audience is listening. So what would you think about how your story is being told today?
How my stories being true? Well, truthfully, I hope. Well, my detractors would have said I was, oh, what did they say? Ruthless and ambitious. Oh, and I say, for what? I never grappled for any position. I never took a farthing for my work. No, I didn't have to. Father
Mm.
supported me, and then he provided for me when he passed. And, well, if I might share, I have heard that some of the modern detractors have the temerity to say that I was racist. Me? Oh, I say history points it to a different picture. Just ask the people of India, those in your country, all of Northern America and Europe, whom I mentored, assisted, indeed, even those who began the Johns Hopkins School of Nursing and the university and the hospital. Dr. Oster was a frequent correspondence. He depended upon me, and I sent him the blueprints of my School of Nursing and plans for hospital. All in all, Johns Hopkins was built on the Nightingale plan. Me, racist? That is poppycock.
Well, Florence, I know that. And speaking of telling your story, we are so fortunate to have the author of The Amazing Life of Florence Nightingale, the Reluctant Celebrity, with us today. And not just through your writings, but through bringing your life onto stage. And her name is Dr. Candy Campbell.
Ah, yes, my avatar.
Your
What a
avatar,
moment.
Candy Campbell. And she is the only professional actor, Nightingale Scholar, and RN to actually portray you. So I would love to bring Candy onto the stage because we want our listeners to meet the woman that has researched all about Florence Nightingale and is bringing her story to life in our life-changing classic number 36.
Hi there.
Oh, I love it, Candy. Welcome.
You see behind the stage set here what it looks like.
You are unbelievable. Oh, and Candy, I had to laugh when you said women, ruthless, ambitious, racist. Yeah, the more you're talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much about historical figures that everybody likes to rewrite. Enough about that. I'm glad we have this life-changing classic and somebody of your intellect and your credibility and your storytelling expertise to really share and bring her life. So,
Oh, thank you.
Candace, what drew you to her other than being an RN? I mean, what drew you to Florence Nightingale?
Oh, it's such a funny story. May I share that?
Please.
Okay. Well, I was professor at the University of San Francisco School of Nursing and Health Professions, and I'd been like yourself a professional speaker since 2003,
Mhm.
and the year was 2010, and the wonderful librarian at our school, Claire Sharif, it came to a faculty meeting that day and said, everyone, I'll make it short. It's a quick announcement. I don't know if you're aware, but this is the year 2010, the 100th year anniversary of the death of Florence Nightingale. And we all went, okay. We're supposed to celebrate that. And she said, oh, but it's notable because there are people behind the scenes all over the place, in many corners of the world, mainly Britain, but lots of other places, who have her collected works and they've digitized them. And I have them in the library. And I'll give you a code and you can get into them and you can read her work. And I think the other professors and I are looking at each other. We only knew she ever wrote one book.
Mhm.
And we said so. We've all read the book. Thank you. And she said, have you read all 200?
No way.
And we said, say what? 200? She said, yes, we have over 10,000 of her letters. Come and read. So,
Oh,
as it turned out, I made a bit of a study, and that was accidental too, because you see, 3 days a week, my classes got out at 4 o'clock, and I lived outside of San Francisco. I lived in Walnut Creek. That's on a good day with no traffic, it's an hour's drive. Well, you know what I mean.
Mhm.
You you know what cities are like. It was at least a 2-hour drive if I left at 4, probably 3.
Mhm.
So I would always go get a snack and, do catch up on my work. But I started getting my snack, opening up my laptop, and I thought, I'll check it out. So the first day I thought, this is really good. I will continue. So the first week I thought, okay, it's clear. I got to take a big sheet of paper. I got one of those 13 column pads and I started writing down themes. And I finally got 6 themes that she wrote about. And I got it over and over and over. Between the books and her writing too, I mean, think of it, they didn't have
I
telephones.
know. Well, when you said that once, twice, 3 times a day, I mean, she was relentless.
Well, not only that, it's interesting because evidently the post, if you were a normal person, the post would come twice a day. But she was an aristocrat and she paid to have it 3 and sometimes 4 a day. It was almost like having a messenger service
Yes.
because she was busy, right?
Yes.
So that is why, yes, she was able to do that. But back to this story. So I got hooked. And you know something? In 2013, I finished the whole thing. And I thought, well, I'm a researcher. I'll probably just write another book. And I was at a National Speakers Association holiday party. And I don't know if you happen to know Barry Wishner, a lovely man who's been kind of a mentor of mine. And he heard me going on and he said, okay, so I have a question. You or you're all excited about this Nightingale chick. Uh, and you're a nurse. Yes. And you've already had 2 solo shows. Well, yeah, I had. And he said, why isn't this your 3rd show? And I said, Barry, it's a lot of work. And you don't make that much money. And I am busy. I'm a professor now. Well, assistant professor, but same difference. I'm working my 3 days a week turned into more like 60 plus hours a week. I'm correcting papers. I'm doing all this. I have no time at all. He said, okay, I get it. Well, let me ask one more question. He said, what would have to happen for you to change your mind?
Uh,
And I said, I'm not changing my mind. He goes, oh, come on, come on. There must be something. I said, he goes, money. And I'm like, no, it's too much work. He said, come on. I said, okay, Barry, God himself would have to tell me to do this show. All right, all right. So the next morning at 9:30, this is God. I'm telling you to do this show. So he and his wife Barbara had talked about it, and he continued to say, I'm going to dog you. I'm going to call you
mhm.
every month. Tell me what's the next step. And
Thank you.
so it happened.
love it. And for our listeners out there, that's where I met Candy at I think VSR, the Veteran Speakers Retreat. She's been in the biz with Charles and all these, a lot of the tremendous people we've had in here. And I met her a couple years ago and found out what she did. And I'm like, we need to do one of these little life-changing classics. And that was a couple years ago. And we kept talking about it and talking about it. And I'm so excited because it's Women's History Month. And this is, for those of you that know most of our readers, but if you haven't seen them, we have all of them, tons of them. And this will be number 36. And this is our second female heroine. We have one of Joan of Arc. So Florence Nightingale is in great company with Joan of Arc. Candy, how do people get a hold of you, or tell them a little bit about your show? And I'm going to have in the show notes how they can get a hold of you and bring Florence to their event. But tell people kind of where you're at and where they can connect with you.
Okay. Well, they can go to my website, particularly for people who are booking agents and others who book these shows.
Mhm.
It's called Florence Nightingale Live, LIVE.com.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I almost said Florence. Candy, thank you so much for taking the time to put this together. And for our readers out there, the people that put these together are the expert in it. And so we just culled their incredible credibility and passion. And I'm so glad that we will have this little book to go along with your stage presence and everything else you do. So thank you
I'm
again.
excited. Thank you so much. That was lots of fun. Thanks so much.
Thanks for coming through time and space with us. And to our tremendous listeners out there, be sure and get to the Tremendous Life website. You can get all 36 in a bundle. You can just get some of these, share these with everybody you know. And thanks for supporting us. And remember, you'll be the same person 5 years from now that you are today, except for two things: the people you meet and the books you read. So make them one about Florence. And you just met Candace. So have a great one, everybody.